you like to bet right alongside your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper for the next 40 days for under $5 per day? Well, we have you covered. A 30-day all-access pass is priced at $2.99, but for a limited time, not only are we discounting the price by $100, but adding on 10 more days of picks for free. So outside of the $100 discount, we are tossing in a free 3-day all-access, a $39 value, and a free 7-day all-access, a $99 value for a combined savings of $238. So to recap, for the next 40 days, you will get all plays across all sports from your favorite WagerTalk or Sports Memo handicapper played during your access, including 5% best bets for under $5 per day. Have an existing all-access pass? No worries, as your 40 days will not begin until your current package expires.
Happy Monday, guys. Welcome in right here to WagerTalk TV. I'm extremely excited. It feels like Christmas morning as an NHL fan, NHL bettor. The playoffs are here. The race for the Stanley Cup is here, and we are ready to break down these matchups for you every single day. Looking forward to throwing in some props as well. Now that the playoffs are here, I'll be back with some prop action, and so will Carm, especially near the end of the show. But can't wait to get started. We have a full roster of handicappers ready to join us this week. As far as today, it'll be just Carmine and I to get things started. But Carm, the playoffs are here. I spoke about how I just was ready to I was done with the regular season. I just wanted it to be over with. The games, most of them were meaningless. I'm super excited. I texted you yesterday, said it felt like Christmas Eve. I'm excited as a fan and excited as a bettor. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Fun weekend, great weekend. I'm looking forward, looking forward to getting the playoffs started. They start tonight. 4 really good games. For anyone who follows me on Twitter, as you know, Saturday was my wedding anniversary. So my wife, who's a big soccer fan, and I have season tickets to Toronto FC, so we went to watch the game in the afternoon. Of course, I do what I normally do. I have the Kelly fever, the Kelly in Vegas fever, that whenever I go, I just end up buying those 50-50 draw tickets. And they put the number on the screen, and I look at my numbers, and I'm like, no, this can't be right. I go, these numbers match. For the first time ever, I hit the 50-50 draw. Now, half a stadium there, so not a lot of sales, but it's still, I won like 43, just a little over $4,300 on the 50-50 draw. I was pretty happy about. I tweeted out some pictures and tagged Kelly on it. So that was a good start to my Saturday. That was for sure. And now we're getting hockey season started, Andrew, and I'm pretty pumped. So with that said, you mentioned at the start, now that we're into the playoffs, guys, obviously a lot of segments are done. Those are regular season segments, the buy and sell, the 6 and 60. The best bet segment, as far as picking games, because there's obviously a lot fewer games, is replaced with player props. And Andrew and I will do player props, much like we did in last season's NHL playoffs. And let's hope they are just as profitable. So we'll get those out. And then we're going to give you leans on the games as we discuss them. And hopefully you guys can find a little bit of actionable info within those leans to help you get some winners during this NHL playoff season. So I'm looking forward to it, Andrew.
Well, Carm, I can't wait. As you know, I'm really, really excited, and congratulations to you. It sounds like it was a great anniversary in all kinds of different ways. So something that you would say, when that bowl or jar gets passed around at church next Sunday, just make sure you know what to do. Or if you're at a restaurant, maybe do a Siri challenge again, Carm. Karma works in a million different ways. And hey, I'm happy for you, man. And hey, you got some more bankroll money for some serious wagers, and the playoffs are here.
Yeah, my friends, my buddies are all Leaf fans up here, so they are absolutely pumped for the playoffs. Leafs play on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and all the WhatsApp chat groups that I'm in are just like, the Leafs are going to roll. The Leafs are going to roll. They invited me out to watch the games at bars, and it's the most uncomfortable feeling, because you know how I am with this. But I'm going to go watch the game with them. I'm going to have a few beers. I will pick up a tab or two along the way, and if they win, great for them. If they lose, I'll be there to console them in my own special way, as you know, Andrew.
Absolutely. So today's games and matchups we're going over, of course, we have the Bruins and the Carolina Hurricanes. Next up, of course, the aforementioned Maple Leafs hosting the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, we have the Blues visiting the Wild. And last but certainly not least, the LA Kings taking on the Edmonton Oilers. Carm, without further ado, let's jump right into things. Let's get things started, and let's talk Boston Bruins and Carolina Hurricanes. Playoff hockey here. Carolina minus 115 at home. The Boston Bruins minus 105 here. Game one in Raleigh. Taking a look at this game with a total of 5.5. Storylines to go over real quick. Well, number one for the Boston Bruins, health is a big thing. They are healthy. There's been a lot of talk this year about, this guy didn't play. Okay, that guy's out. Now this defenseman is out, and now Bergeron's out. It's been very rare for us to see a healthy roster with the Boston Bruins this year. And that's a dangerous thing. They get hot in the last month of the season. Carolina, a little bit of a different story. For them, they kind of pulled the Tampa Bay of 2 years ago. They kind of slacked off over the last kind of 3-4 weeks of the season, Carm. We'll see how much of a factor that is. But of course, the biggest factor of them all, goaltending, which I think is taken into account with the price here in the series. And of course, in opening game one, no Frederik Andersen. I just feel terrible for him, as he just always seems to have these lingering injuries that pop up at the very worst time. It'll be Antti Ranta between the pipes for the Carolina Hurricanes. He hasn't been too bad. It's just a drop-off, of course, of Frederik Andersen. Linus Ullmark between the pipes for the Boston Bruins. That was announced early. Bruce Cassidy made that very known. But it wouldn't shock me if we do end up seeing Jeremy Swayman at some point in the net, guys, in this series. But with all that information being said, some little quick history. These teams are meeting now for the third time in 4 years in the playoffs. The last couple of times we've seen a sweep from the Bruins. We've seen them winning in 5. They have dominated this Carolina team in the playoffs here. I'm going to look towards a total in the opening game here, Carm, and I'm going to expect a low-scoring hockey game. I'm going to expect under 5.5 here. I remember the term a lot of people say is bet the lowest total under, bet the highest total over. I know it's the playoffs, but it kind of reminds me of that because we are seeing 6s. Yeah, even I saw a couple 6.5s for these playoff games. But at this 5.5, I do expect a low-scoring battle here and a goaltending duel. Despite, not having Frederik Andersen in net, I don't think the sky is falling because of that for the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think that is adjusted into the price, and it's a good one. But my play for tonight would be the under 5.5 here, Carm, here for the show that I like quite a bit in this game. What are your thoughts on this series as a whole and, of course, the opening night matchup?
Well, isn't it great that it's the first game of the playoffs and we might slightly disagree on this? One of the things I came into, in going over all of the matchups on the weekend for the next couple of days, I looked at it and my first thought was I'm going to look at a lot of the unders because we saw a lot of games with those 5.5s, low scoring games last season. We saw some 5s popping up on the screen. You know what I mean? Obviously, the big news or the big thing going into this, as you mentioned, is the Bruins are healthy, and Carolina, the thing hanging over their heads is the fact that Freddie Andersen may not even see a game in this series. He just finally hit the ice. He's got that a lower body injury, which is his left leg. And obviously, with goalies, it's a lot different than it is with any other player. You have an injury, lower body injury. As a goalie, it is a lot worse. But with that said, listen, Ranta has been at least, it's going to be his first playoff start. But the guy had a good season. They combined, they won the Jennings Trophy this year for the lowest goals allowed. That award goes to if you have two goalies who start 25 or more games. And he's played well now in a playoff. If this was in Boston to start out, I'd feel a little worried about Ranta, but he's at home on home ice, and the Hurricanes are scoring goals. Andrew, they're still scoring goals against teams, against the Rangers, against the Islanders, teams with good goaltending. This is going to be one of those series that I think it's going to go 6. It could very well go 7 games. I don't see a team sweeping here unless the Bruins somehow find a way to win game 1 and put the pressure squarely on the Canes here. One of the things I looked at this weekend, and Andrew, we talked about it on the weekend, is some of these games. I know you guys want to bet every single game, but some of these games you might want to watch that first game. Hope that let's say a team like the Bruins win game 1, and then you come back with Carolina in game 2. We talk about a series that you think is going to go the distance or could go at the very least 6 games. We might see those first couple of games, kind of like the Toronto and Tampa series, where they split the first couple of games before heading to a different venue. With that said, I think we see some goals here. I get that you look at the 3 previous games they played. They played 3 times this year, and Carolina outscored them 16-1 in those games. And I get it. All 3 games, Freddie Anderson in net. Don't look at what happened during the regular season and think it applies to the playoffs, because it normally doesn't each and every year. But Carolina held over the Bruins during the regular season. And the Bruins started, I think, all 3 goalies, Rask, I think Swayman, and Ullmark in each of those games, and got beaten each of those games. But Anderson started all 3 of those, so it's going to be the first time Ranta faces the Bruins this season. With that said, I have a slight lean to the over here, Andrew. I know you're leaning the under. I'm going to go against what I thought about on the weekend, and I just think that while Ranta's been good, it's going to be one of those games where I think the Canes are going to need to put some goals on the board against a healthy Bruins team as well too, because I think Bruins get a few of their own here. So I think the 5.5 over here is my play.
Well, and the Boston Bruins had just a great ending to the season as well. You talk about Carolina putting up some goals, but like you said as well, Boston closing out the season on a great note. And like I mentioned, healthy. They got a couple games in a row where they had no injuries, a full roster, a full lineup, which certainly helps. And I'm happy you mentioned that, Carm, about the 16-1 goal ratio. And not just because of this game in particular, but I had a lot of people ask me, how much do those season series matchups mean to you during the regular season transitioning into the playoffs? And my answer has been, unless it's dominant, doesn't mean anything. If a team has won, 3 games to 2 or something like that, but they were all by 1 or 2 goals, then it's a little different than this. So I think this is noteworthy, but of course, like you mentioned, different goaltenders and things of that nature. But 16-1, hey, it seems like Carolina certainly has their number. But looking for some goals out the gate for Carmen this one. It's a crazy ratio, though. How much do you care about regular season series matchups?
No, I don't, honestly, as much, because I've seen it in years past. Having bet hockey for so long, I've seen where teams have won the season series 4-0 and then they lose in 5 in the playoffs. It just doesn't carry over because it's a different beast. You don't know any of those games that happened during the regular season. Whether teams were coming, whether they were playing, one of the teams was playing, 3 games in 4 nights, or if there was injuries within those prior to those games. You don't know any of that. We know, at least as far as the series go, we can reevaluate after game 1, after game 2, moving forward. But I don't put a lot of stock in it, because if you did, the bookmakers wouldn't have this series at I think the series price here is -115 for Carolina, -105 for the Bruins, or it could be at -110 both ways. If they took any of those 3 games into play here, you would think that Carolina, even with Freddie Anderson on the bench, would be a much bigger price, and they're not.
Most definitely. Both Carm and I looking to play chess, not checkers this year during the playoffs. Like Carm said, watch one game, see how a team looks. Maybe you want to look at the other team after they lose opening game. There's in-series wagers you can make as well. And we're going to talk about that in the next game, but definitely a game plan that both of us are looking towards. Guys, a quick reminder, it is $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com. Everything that Carm and I have up for grabs, listed for $9 only for today. Of course, everybody else at the website as well, you can find their plays for just $9. Only today, after tomorrow, back to regular prices. Guys, let's get into our next game, and this is going to be a big one, Carm. Toronto, -125 now, current price. Tampa Bay, plus 105 on the road. The defending back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. And shout out to Gary Bettman and his crew for somehow allowing this to be a first-round matchup. Whatever happened to 1 versus 8 anyway and 2 versus 7? We won't get into that on this show, but the fact that these two teams are meeting in the first round says something about this format that might be a little fishy here. But total's at 6.5 here in this one. The interesting thing about this matchup is that both teams, I know Carm mentioned he doesn't take anything into account about the regular season matchups, but I had to mention the last 2 times they've played each other, they've both just kicked each other's ass. I mean, it's been one team winning 8-1 and one team winning 6-2. It hasn't really been close contests at all, really. But Carm, I'm going to throw it to you for your opening thoughts on this series and for this game tonight here in Toronto.
Yeah, Andrew, we talked about it maybe 2-3 weeks ago, maybe even longer. I talked about how in the 2 previous seasons, Tampa seemed to have shut it down the last 30 days of the season. They were in a playoff spot, and they didn't care where they finished or whether they had to start on the road. And it looked like they were doing the exact same thing this regular season. And then they seem to have flicked a switch and were playing much better. And we're not talking about flicking a switch against bad teams, even though they did split a couple games with Columbus, in which they won 1 and lost 1. But they beat some good teams along the way. The Islanders coming back from a deficit, winning that game, beating the Leafs, beating the Florida Panthers, who had won 13 straight games to that point, and they beat them 8-4 in Florida. This team started to play better, and they started to gear up for a playoff run. Now, the problem here is they're facing a Toronto team that is also playing extremely well, had a very good season. This is going to be a good series. I really hope this one goes to 7 games. I would love to see a 7-game series in this one. I think it goes at least 6 because neither one of these teams is getting swept. And I don't think this series finishes 4-1 either way. This is one of those ones where, again, you could very well watch the first game if you want. I know we're programmed as bettors, as gamblers, whatever, to want to bet every single game, but you can bet them in game if you want. You don't have to have a pre-game lean. But with that said, I'm going to watch the game and hope that Tampa Bay wins the game, and I come right back with the Leafs tomorrow. And conversely, if the Leafs win, I'll come back with Tampa tomorrow. I think or on Wednesday. I think they split the opening games in Toronto. Toronto's a very good team. They had a very good season. It remains to be seen whether Tampa Bay can shut down that number 1 line for the Leafs. I think that, while they have a very good second line, I think that number 1 line is their bread and butter. You shut down Marner, you shut down Matthews, you shut down the Leafs. I get Tavares is a leader, but I don't think Tavares wins you a series, much like Marner and Matthews together will do. So it remains to be seen. Whether Tampa can replicate what they did the last couple of seasons, I don't know. I have to believe, in all honesty, if they don't get bounced by the Leafs in the first round, it could very well happen in the second round against the Florida Panthers. They lost a couple of key pieces to the line from those 3rd and 4th lines, so it remains to be seen what they can do come playoff time, because that is where you need those 3rd and 4th lines in the playoffs. With that said, Andrew, small lean to Tampa Bay here in this one. But again, I'm going to bet this in-game in all likelihood. I looked at the total of 6.5, and you see some of those score lines. I actually lean to the under here as the better of the 2 options. I'll be honest with you. Instead of leaning to one of the sides, and I do lean to Tampa, I would rather have a pre-game bet on the 6.5 and lean the under. I think what we saw the 8-1 game or 8-2 game, the 6-2 game, I just can't see that happening here. I think both teams are cautious in game 1, and I think it's a little lower scoring game. So my thoughts there.
Awesome stuff there, Carm. And the quotes coming out of both coaches has just been unbelievable. Pretty much, I saw Sheldon Keefe, a quote from him yesterday. This series is going to be a borderline violent series, and we are ready for it. John Cooper talks about the experience of his team and how he thinks that favors them big time. Carm, looking at these matchups for both teams, you talk about how important it is for Marner and Matthews and Nylander, those guys to show up. As a Canadiens fan, I remember last year what happened with them in the playoffs, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they didn't create chances. I mean, Carey Price, to me, top 2, top 1 goalie in the world. I mean, the amount of times that he robbed Marner and Matthews, they each could have had 2 or 3 more goals in that series. And now you got to play Vasilevsky, who is borderline the number 1 goaltender in the world. That's had a little bit of a shaky last month of the year, but he's still Vasilevsky. He's still a guy that's proven himself countless times in the playoffs. And, as much as I agree that it's important for Matthews and Marner to get going, I think that if the Leafs can have success with a Pierre Engvall goal, with an Alex Kerfoot goal, with the Ilya Mikheyev great night out there, if Michael Bunting is healthy, I think that helps the Leafs big time. A team out west in Canada that's comparable. Of course, we're going to talk about them too a lot. But the Oilers, I mean, what's made them successful recently has been that McDavid and Draisaitl haven't had to score for them to win. So I know superstars have to be your superstars, but I think it's crucial for the Leafs to get that secondary scoring. As far as the Lightning go, everybody thought, Carm, that their third line was done. The salary cap, they were over the cap. They didn't have enough money to buy good players now. Alex Killorn, Ross Colton, and Nick Paul have done a great job of filling that third line. And I'm looking at, just like you, plus 200 pre-series for the series to go to 7 games. I know it's kind of it's not really the most exciting price, Carm, but what do you think about that at plus 200?
I actually like it. I didn't actually I was going to look after the show at the series to go 6 and series to go 7 props. And if they were decent sized, if decent sized plus money props, I was going to take both of them. Figuring that no matter which one came in, I would make a small profit on it. I think we're going to go 6 or 7 in this. When I look at the series, and again, I'm putting the sort of the bias aside. It's what happens in this series because you have 2 teams, one with obviously a 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions with a ton of playoff experience, and then you have one that hasn't won a first round of the playoffs. And if you get down early, if you lose game 1, how much pressure do you have as a home team, Toronto, to win game 2 before you head back to Tampa Bay with that hanging over your head? The fact that, season after season with these core players, Matthews and Marner and Tavares, I get he was injured in last year's playoffs, but during that series, but that you can't win a playoff series. It has to creep into your head and come into your psyche. Now, again, I'm not a team doctor. I'm not a team psychiatrist, so I can't figure out what's going on in their heads, and I'm not going to try and guess. But the fact that you lose year after year in the first round of the playoffs has to have some type of effect to you. And maybe they're out to prove it this year with a playoff run. But this is 2 teams that I got to see what happens after tonight's game. If Tampa wins the game, how do the Leafs respond on Wednesday night? Those thoughts have to creep in. You start to get those white knuckle games, Andrew, where you grip that stick a little harder and you try a little harder. So we'll see what happens there. But I like your thought on the to go 7 games. I'm going to look at the 6 and 7 games and hope to find some decent plus money on each. If I can get them like get game 6 at, let's say, plus 160 or plus 170, and get game 7 at plus 200, then it's a play because I think it goes at least 6 games.
At DraftKings, I saw game 6 and game 7 were both plus 200. So take that for what it is. But I think that it's going to be a very competitive series. I actually think there's a chance the Leafs could win the opening game, guys. But the way I'm looking here, I like the first period over, but if you like the under, and I like where Carm is going, I think wait a little bit and then jump in live. That's just my personal thoughts. I think we could see, I get playing safe, but we could see it early on. But we've got a couple more series to get to before our best bets here at the end of the show. The St. Louis Blues and the Minnesota Wild head-to-head here in Minnesota, minus 130 for the home team, plus 110 for St. Louis, the road club here. Total at 6 in this one. And to me, guys, this is the most competitive series. This is a very competitive series here. A team that both teams packed with talent. We've got great goaltending in both as well. And you look at this matchup in particular, though, you look at those series odds, and the way they opened up, especially for Minnesota. And you see these game one odds here. Both of these teams have done very well at home, especially in Minnesota. They are a great home hockey team, which is crucial in the playoffs. You want to get out there and perform in front of your fans, but also protect that home ice. You take a look at, I know that Carr mentioned he doesn't take it into account as much, and I don't want to keep being a broken record, but I like the dominant, when it's a dominant stat here. The Blues swept the Minnesota Wild during the season series. And, they did it in a variety of ways, winning low scoring games, high scoring games. And one thing I like about the Blues, you've got Jordan Kyrou, you've got Robert Thomas, you've got Vladimir Tarasenko, you've got Ryan O'Reilly, and their experience. They've got a good mix of youth guys, younger guys, and older guys, but they're just so experienced, a great blue line. You look at Minnesota, though, the guys that they've added, the grittiness, the talent up front, the defense that they have, I think it's great. But for me, when I look at a series like this, Carm, and an opening night game one, it's dog or pass, because I don't want to lay minus 130 in a series that I think is as tight as could be. And with a talent-filled, not just a top 6, I'll call it a top 9 for the St. Louis Blues. I think there's plenty of value here on them to win this game and to win the series. What are your thoughts?
I was scrambling to find, because I knew I have it here somewhere, and I'll have it on tomorrow's show, of in these tight series of taking what the profit margin is on taking the road team in the first game. We tend to see that is one where you try and steal one. You try and steal that first game, and then all the pressure is on the home team. This is a very good matchup. Minnesota, they were such an entertaining team in last year's playoffs. They had that series with the Vegas Golden Knights, I think, that win 7 games. This is a good one. When people think of St. Louis, Andrew, they just don't. I just feel like they just think of the old Blues type of team, a team that just plays defense, doesn't score a lot of goals. Listen, the Blues were the 3rd best team on the road this season in the Western Conference, 23, 12, and 6, behind only the LA Kings and I think it was Colorado or Calgary. And then as far as goal differential goal, this is a team that scores goals. In the Western Conference, only one team scored more goals than the St. Louis Blues, and that was the Colorado Avalanche, who had 1 goal more, I think at 311, and I think the Blues were at 310. As far as goal differential, the Blues were number 3 behind Calgary and Colorado. So it's a team that scores. It's a team that plays very good defense, and they're going to need it. Yeah, that's the type of team formation you need heading into the playoffs. A team that plays extremely well defensively, because we talk about if you're a high-scoring team, but you allow a lot of goals, can you carry that? Can that play carry over into the playoffs? Does that style carry over into the playoffs? And the aforementioned Leafs in years past, it hasn't in winning low-scoring games. I think the Blues are more likely to win a low-scoring game than Minnesota is, and this is even with the fact that Minnesota have a complete better goaltending upgrade with Marc-Andre Fleury in goal. But St. Louis, they're not chopped liver either. Ville Husso had a very good season, and as bad as Binnington was during the season, you look at Binnington's numbers over the last month of the season, and he turned it around. He looked like Binnington, rookie season, Stanley Cup winning team, and he's playing extremely well. So the fact that you have a reliable goalie who could come in if there's a problem with Husso bodes well for this St. Louis Blues team. I think they go in, and I'm leaning on them to steal game 1 of this series. So I'm not looking at what happened during the regular season, but I'm looking for them to go in and steal game 1 of this season. So I'm going to take the plus money with the Blues here.
All right, the plus money with the St. Louis Blues here. It's going to be a great series. Lots of talent out there in that one. Very competitive. And like Carm said, you want to look towards those teams that have the ability to win low-scoring games, and they're definitely one of them. Speaking of which, let's jump into the LA Kings and the Edmonton Oilers, our last series and game. We'll break down for today. Edmonton minus 200 tonight. Los Angeles plus 170. Total at 6 here in this one, guys. And, Carm, we've done a lot of talking about teams that might not have had success in the playoffs, but had a lot of success in the regular season in years past. Well, the Edmonton Oilers are certainly one of those teams, Carm.
Yeah. Andrew, there is what I talked about again, the psyche of teams, and again, I'm not qualified to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it. Is there's no team that needs to win Game 1 or to win a series more than the Edmonton Oilers, and of course, the aforementioned Leafs. This is a team that last year was completely shut down by the Winnipeg Jets. That Draisaitl, McDavid, they need to show up. Now, they get a Kings team that, unlike that Winnipeg team, I think that the Kings team are a better matchup for them. And, the fact that obviously they're starting on home ice, and the Kings were involved in more, what's the word I'm looking for here? More critical games down the stretch in which they needed to put wins together. I think the Oilers had a much easier time closing out, and the Oilers at home were ultra impressive to close out the season. I think they went on if I remember correctly, I think it was a 15 game point streak at home. I think they won 13 games, lost a couple in OT, I believe, but they were 13-0-2, picked up points in 15 straight games at home. And they have home ice in this. And I think at the end of the day, that is the biggest factor in this series. If you look at the markets overpriced this series to start. The markets opened up the Edmonton Oilers at about minus 280. That eventually dropped down to about minus 240, minus 250, probably where it should be, given how the Oilers were bounced in for last season. But I think the Oilers are the play here. I'm going to take the Oilers tonight, whether we put them in regulation or we take them on the puck line. I think they're the better team in this series. And Draisaitl and McDavid had better bring it, or the offseason is going to be a very difficult one for this Edmonton Oilers team. So give me the Oilers tonight.
Yeah, lots of pressure on that Oilers team to get it done. They've made some moves, they made some changes, and most importantly, they've actually gotten some depth scoring this season. We'll see if it translates into the playoffs. Of course, the LA Kings, when I think about a playoff team, they're certainly built more like that kind of team, although they weren't as much of a low-scoring, dead-nut under team this year either. The biggest thing for me about the LA Kings is their youth. Lots of young players, lots of pressure on them to play big roles. Oh, yeah, let's not forget Drew Doughty out with wrist surgery. He's out for the rest of the year. So that's a huge factor as well. I think Edmonton takes Game 1. I'll be looking at them on the -1 here, half bet puck line, half bet money line, if I'm making a bet on this game. But I will say, Carm, I think the LA Kings have a better chance at extending the series a little more than people might think. I think that they've got a lot of forwards that love to back check. As a Montreal Canadian fan, I'm very familiar with what Philip Deneau does in the playoffs. He's made a career of shutting down top lines. He's not much of a goal scorer. There's plenty of guys on the LA Kings that can score, but also play defense. And if the Edmonton Oilers get caught up trying to play pond hockey out there, I'm telling you, I think the LA Kings are going to surprise a few people. But I think Edmonton in Game 1, as you said, Carm, it's crucial. They come out and give a great effort. So looking at that for Game 1, and Carm and I all throughout the week, and of course with our guests as well, we're going to go through these in-series wagers. Once one team goes down, you can look at the +1.5 games, +2.5 games, or this team to win in 6 games, so on and so forth. Before we jump into our final best bet segment, I want to let you guys all know Puck149, that coupon code Puck149, $149 for the entire playoffs, is still active. One more day. Today is the last day of Puck 149. Use that with Carmine. Use it for myself. Use it for any NHL handicapper and get all of their plays for $149. And make sure you use that today, guys. Both Carmine and I have future wagers, serious wagers that will expire and go away after today. So make sure you take advantage of that at my homepage, at Carmine's homepage. $149 every single play for the entire playoffs. It's a pretty good deal. Take advantage of it while you can. Carm, let's jump into the last segment here. We're looking forward to breaking down games, but also breaking down games in a different way. And you are back with a prop for us for this year.
Yeah. First of all, up at WagerTalk, 3 afternoon soccer games. I had a 7-2-2 weekend in soccer. Want to finish off the European season with a good run. It's $9 Monday, so you get all 3 games for $9, and a couple of games up in NHL hockey tonight for the playoffs. Andrew, as far as a prop bet or a show best bet, we're going to do some player props. I'm going to go to that Leaf game. I'm going to take Braden Point to get a point or more in this game. You have to lay about 145 on that. I actually really like this. Listen, he had 58 points in 66 games this year, so almost an average of a point a game. He did sit out some games. He was rested, a bit of an injury, but I like the matchup of obviously that second line that he's on against the Leafs, Tavares, Kerfoot, and Nylander line. And I think he gets. He gets on the score sheet tonight. So I'm going to take Braden Point to get a point or more tonight in tonight's game.
First and foremost, congratulations on that soccer weekend. That's awesome. 50-50 winner and a great soccer weekend. It sounds like you had a pretty good one there. Carm, back in the prop world, looking at Braden Point to get off to a good start tonight in the playoffs. Looking at him to get a point. And for myself, guys, I have a 5% serious wager, but also several other serious wagers and, of course, plays going up for tonight. And I have a baseball play going, cashed a 5% play again over the weekend. And we'll try and keep the baseball season going. I believe top 3 right now over at WagerTalk, close to, I think, 17 units so far earned on the season. We'll try and build on that as it is a very, very long season, as you know, in the MLB. My prop play, guys, we're rocking with Patrice Bergeron. Over 3.5 shots on goal at plus 110. This is a guy that's gotten 4, 8, 7, 6 countless times over the last 15, 20 games here. He is a massive, massive high volume shooter for this team. And the Carolina Hurricanes, they had the best goals against in the entire league. I mean, they shut down teams. They did not allow many goals. Boston will know they have to fire lots of shots on goal if they want to be successful. It starts with their guy, Patrice Bergeron, over 3.5 shots, plus 110. Carmine, he's looking at Braden Point, over 0.5 points, minus 145. Awesome stuff, guys. Remember, make sure you use that great promo code. Get involved. Join Carmine and I for our playoff packages, as well as anybody else at the website. $9 Monday. WagerTalk today coming up just after this show. On behalf of Carm, I'm Andrew. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.